After his dramatic arrest last night, Rampal's bail in a 2006 murder case was cancelled today by the Punjab and Haryana court, which has now sent him to jail. In fact, that probably is the picture of the day. This man who called himself Baba Rampal, or calls himself Baba Rampal, is now standing behind bars. Well, inside his ashram, where 6 people were found dead yesterday, there are what only can be described as incredible scenes. My colleague Sudhir Ranjan Sen reports.
ये मेरा बच्चा दिमाग से पागल है, मैं ठीक करवा लिया।
अंदर कितने दिन से थे आप लोग?
अब जब से इन्होंने रोका उसी दिन से हम तो
आप लोगों को रोक के रखे हुए हैं?
हाँ जी।
So literally heart-rending scenes. These are perhaps the first visuals of what exactly is happening inside Satpal Ashram. This is the main area, or one of the main areas of the ashram that is spread over 12 acres. People still holding on. Very many are refusing to go. You can see many police officers, the RAF, trying to convince people, telling them that there is nothing that is going to happen to you. Please leave the premises. This is about 5 floors high. Many of these doors still locked. I mean, in fact, when we went in and came out, all of it locked, huge locks there. And you can see the double walls that have been made. And this space that has been created, the quilts kept out there. Now, the reason for this is from where his, the infamous private army that he had gathered was fighting back the police. The buckets of water that you see out there have been positioned very, very strategically to deal with tear gas. Because tear gas shells were hurled in, these blankets or these rough pieces of cloth that have been there would be dipped in these water and wrapped around and continue keeping back the police. One of the many things that have been tucked inside the lair, the so-called lair of the so-called Godman, is this swimming pool. This has just been discovered by the Haryana police, and as you can see, they're still trying to break down, break open some of the locks and trying to find out, what exactly is there. Policemen still trying to use ladders, and trying to climb up to the next floor, because all these doors, all the doors to this area, to this house, are mysteriously locked. There is no one inside it, but they are all locked. With camera person Shashikant Jha, Sudhir Ranjan Sen for NDTV.
The question really is, why is it that so many people, and they run into the millions in this country, have blind faith in these self-declared Godmen? And are these men therefore then above the law? Joining us tonight, Shiv Vishwanathan here in the studio with us. Shobha Dey joins us tonight from Mumbai. Sambit Patra, spokesperson of the BJP. Mr. Rashmikant, spokesperson of the Congress party. We'll also be joined by a representative of the Art of Living very shortly. Shiv Vishwanathan, let me ask you. We've seen these horrendous scenes playing out of this particular ashram over the last few days, and yet you find that there are people who are still there. There are, devotees who don't want to leave, who still believe in this man. What explains it?
I thought it was quite obvious. Faith. Faith, once it's there, is more than blind. It's also deaf and dumb. And that's what you saw enacted. But I think you've got to go a bit deeper. What we are facing is a new political, religious, corporate complex. Because to a certain extent, the Godman as conman is part of the criminal nexus, the Godman as a religious figure is part of the new cults, and the Godman as godfather is part of the new politics. And I think in this triple incarnation, we have to look at these new cults more seriously. Let's take a simple issue. This is a security complex. It's not a religious institution. If this is an ashram,
this is a fortress.
It's a strange
with a swimming
ashram.
pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also seems to be quite luxurious in parts.
Yeah.
And private in a very strange way. I think it needs scrutiny. In fact, I would bring RTI to open up most of these ashrams.
But when you're talking about the political links, it's not like political Godman nexus hasn't been there before. I mean, look at the example of Chandraswamy, for instance. You had former prime ministers who have believed in him and followed him. So why is it different now? Is it because they command a following that is linked to, the political vote bank in Haryana, for instance? We're given to understand that cutting across party lines, you had candidates before the assembly elections lining up to meet Rampal.
Chandraswamy had a small but effective clientele. These are huge cults. I mean, you've got to think of them demographically. They are latent vote banks, and they're going to behave like that. Don't think the BJP came to power in Haryana on its own. A cult or two is always helpful. Whether it's Ramdev or the other Babas, it's your choice of Babas more than your choice of ideologies which is important.
Actually, I'll take that to Sambit Patra. A cult or two is always helpful. Sambit Patra, are we in this position today where you have this situation with somebody like Rampal because of the political patronage at the end of the day that these people have got from your party and from the Congress as well?
No, at the outset I will say that yesterday we have seen that Rampal was arrested. And if I'm allowed a bit of, I would say rhetoric, I would say what was built over 10 years was demolished in 10 days. Because in 10 days, the way we have demolished the Rampal's legacy, we are showing it on television also as to what all was in possession within the ramparts of the forts that were built in 10 days. And all these were not built overnight. I mean, we have seen the 250 LPG cylinders were there, umpteen numbers of licensed and unlicensed guns were there. We have seen, I mean, like walls which were 50 feet high. So definitely all these illegal things were not built over the days. They were built over the years. And well, yes, more than politics, what is essential is that the innocent people should be brought out of the clutches of such fraudmen. I would not call them godmen, such fraudmen. And the reason is that awareness has not spread across the country because of lack of education over the years. We have to educate the people gradually. Only education can bring about the kind of awareness in the people that people themselves should be able to see whom they are following. It's
but
not
it's
that
your own, but it's your own legislators in Haryana in the run-up to the elections that were hobnobbing with the likes of Rampal. They were going out to seek, his blessings and therefore his vote bank. It is your legislators and of the Congress as well. I'm not saying it's just the BJP that have been courting people like the Dera Sacha Sauda and the Baba from there. So, I mean, you can't just say that this has nothing to do with political patronage. It does. It very much does.
No. I'm not saying that this has nothing to do with political patronage. We have seen as to how Dhirendra Brahmachari was running the Prime Minister's office. We have also seen as to how Chandra Swami was running none other than the PM's office. And then we have seen as to how Mrs. Hooda was one of the trustees of the Satlok Ashram of Rampal. I mean, that's the reason as to why Congress allowed the flourishing of such Babas in Haryana for
and
over
now
the 10
Baba
years.
Ramdev gets Z security.
No, let's not paint everyone in the same picture. I cannot say that every guru has to be painted in the same picture. Do we have anything against Baba Ramdev? Do we have anything against the Muslim gurus or the Christian gurus? We do not have against. If we have anything against anyone, then we should point out individually. We cannot brush each one of them, I mean, with the whole community with the same color. So let's not bring Baba Ramdev over here. Well, yes, Rampal was a fraudman and he has been exposed in the tenure of Bharatiya Janata Party. But as far as Godmen ruling over politics is concerned, I believe it is something which has been going from time immemorial. But irony is, it can only be addressed when people are made aware. I mean, since they have the kind of clientage which is humongous, and as the previous speaker was pointing out, they have a humongous following. Under such scenario, it's but natural that people also go to receive their blessings, thinking that in return
I'm going to take that to Shobha Day. Actually, that Shobha, what then explains? I mean, I was having this conversation with Shiv Vishwanathan before the show began, which is that these are not sort of you have followers from across caste and class barriers here. There are people you would think who are very educated, who are devotees of these various Babas and and staunchly so. What explains it?
Well, Nidhi, to start with, this is the new Babalog culture that we are looking at. A new definition of Babalog, let's put it that way. And I agree that, the Babalog have their uses. These Babas have their uses for politicians. Without that kind of patronage, political patronage and protection, they cannot grow into flourishing businesses. At the end of the day, what this man in particular was doing, and over a period of time, was running a parallel government, a parallel forge. It was a state within a state. He had high walls. He had undeclared ammunition and weapons there. None of this could not have possibly not been known to the people in power. That they chose to ignore it as they have in the past ignored various godmen and godwomen who have exerted unnatural influence, the Rasputins of India, yes, like Dhirendra Brahmachari, like Chandraswamy, and I include Ramdev. I'm sorry, it's not enough to say, can we prove anything against him? Maybe in future we will be able to. Maybe right now we haven't been able to. But I will paint them with the same brush. These are not spiritual leaders, these are exploiters of vulnerabilities. Most of the followers of Rampal happen to be uneducated peasants. But in the past, we've seen these godmen attracting the most educated brains of India, like Nani Palkhiwala, for example.
Shobha, you have former prime ministers who have
been followers. Prime ministers,
yeah.
Exactly. So it is exploiting people's insecurities and exploiting vulnerabilities. But at the end of the day, what they're running are business empires. They're not spiritual sort of havens for people. They provide no succor whatsoever. They exploit, and they're exempt from any scrutiny, from any kind of tax obligations. How come Satya Sai Baba ran such a huge empire? No scrutiny of any kind. And the skeletons come tumbling on later. In this man's case, the skeletons are out there for all to see. That those vulnerable people, it's cost 6 lives for us to wake up, and a very inept handling by the chief minister. What was he doing for so many days?
Very strong words spoken by you there. I want to take what you said to Mr. Darshak Hathi, who is the spokesperson of the Art of Living. So you heard what Shobha De was saying, and she was very angry. She's saying she will paint everyone in the same brush. She says that this is a business, it's exploitative, people are being exploited in the name of religion, in the name of spirituality. And the fact is, sir, if you do look at the number of cases that have come out into the open in recent years, they're horrendous, about sexual violence, about sexual exploitation, corruption. The Baba business is getting a bad name, sir.
Neither this is happening in all the fields. There are people who are not genuine, and they are bringing disgrace to their field. Like there are doctors, there are politicians, there are sportsmen who are not genuine, but you cannot generalize everything. I mean, there are good people, there are bad people in every field. So the people has to decide, and those who are good, those who are doing good, definitely people appreciate them. And people like Rampal, definitely what he has done is condemnable, and we should not accept it. But it does not mean that you undermine any particular religion or a saint for that matter. It is happening in all the religion, in all the field, I would say. So rather than generalizing, and one more thing I would like to say, that why not we have, she has also suggested that government should form a all religion federation kind of a thing, who can keep a watch on this kind of people, so then they don't misuse the faith of the people, they don't misuse the religion. So this is what is needed, in fact.
Well, this is not an attack on a particular religion. In fact, when we first were talking about this issue the other day, I think the point that we made strongly was that you do have people from other faiths as well who exploit the fact that they have a certain standing in the community, and it cuts across faiths. But I wanted to ask you what you think about this political patronage. Do you believe that these people would be able to survive and call themselves Godmen and flourish without political support? Do you really think there would be a political will for any government to act and take the suggestion of Sri Ravi Shankar, like you said?
See, there is a nexus between the spiritual leader and the political leader everywhere in the world. I've traveled all over, and I've seen it in US, I've seen it in London, and in Britain and in many other countries. So there is nothing new about it. But the problem is when both the people start misusing it, then it becomes a nexus. So taking a support from a particular community, there is nothing wrong in it.
Yes, but
because in fact, I would say that the religious leader and the political leader should work together in hand.
Oh,
well, Shobha, you're shaking your head.
But it does not mean they misuse their power and
No, I disagree. He's not answering the question directly. You asked him directly about the art of living and their model of how they run their business. which he has not answered, and he's talked about how it is in the USA and how it is in UK. We are aware of all of that. The point is not about working together in a constructive way. It's about political patronage that is used to either generate votes, create vote banks, or exploit the followers in a way that is completely not in the interest of society at large. What we are seeing today is a nexus. It's not a collaborative effort for the good of society. It is by intent it is sinister. And
No,
that is what
I
requires
fully
scrutiny
agree with
and
you.
a complete transparency.
I agree with you, Shobha.
A complete transparency.
See,
How are
when-
these ashrams run? Where do the funds come from?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Are they,
absolutely.
who
That's
do they,
why I'm
are
saying-
they accountable? Are they taxed?
That's why I'm saying there should be a committee.
Who's paying for the
Yeah, yeah.
lifestyle of the gurus and the babas?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about the art of living, see, if you're talking
No,
about
I'm
the
not
art of
talking
living, I can say
specifically
we
about
have
the
the
art of
100%
living.
transparency.
That's for you
and,
to reply,
which
not
is
for
there.
me. I don't know anything about it.
Let me ask
Right.
Mr. Rashmikant that, you know, here this gentleman's ashram, I don't even know what to call it anymore. I mean, look at it. A fortress, it's like a
Business.
castle. It has a swimming pool, you know, they had weapons. This really, actually, Sambit Patra has a point, didn't happen in 10 days. This obviously is something that has been built up over many years. He's got a private army that was built up over many years, and that couldn't have been possible without political patronage from the Congress government that was there as well.
The only, I would generally, on this particular case of Rampal, I would agree that whatever has happened there is absolutely shocking. But I always come to a debate thinking we should be bipartisan, but Mr. Sambit Patra has a habit of trying to make everything partisan. So I think I must answer this, that today's newspaper stories everything carries the fact that Mr. Ramlal or Rampal, whatever his name is, was forced to surrender by the local BJP MLA and independent MLA who was earlier a part of the Lokdal. And the fact that most BJP MLAs go to MPs or MLAs or people in public life go to these self-styled Godmen, because the word Godman itself is an oxymoron. God is supposed to be omnipresent. How can man be God?
Yeah.
So what they do is they start as spiritual teachers, and over a period of time, they start describing themselves as Godmen. And it is, Shiv was right when he said faith, where logic ends, faith begins. And that is why a lot of followers of theirs are actually not the very super rich people, even though they are superstitious. It is the poor, it is the middle class, people who are more insecure, who see nothing for themselves.
Believe me, I see a lot of super rich people who are insecure
there are super rich people who go to temples and things like that.
But they also go to a lot of these babas.
They go to Godmen also. But the fact of the matter is that they talked about Chandraswamy and they talked about, these are all frauds. There is no doubt about it. In the case of Rampal, the case is 8 years old, and he was out on bail. If he was out on bail, whose order is it? Is it the government's order or is it the court's order? It's the court's order.
But how does he build
Right.
up? Who was keeping an eye on his ashram? Please tell me.
No.
How did he get weapons into it?
You see, the fact of the matter is that you cannot monitor every single. I am not
Why
trying to
cannot you
defend
monitor?
this at all. Not for one single moment. Whatever has happened is wrong. It has probably been a failure of the administration also in the last 8 years. I will willingly concede to that. What I will not concede to is that it is the Congress government which saved him. It is actually the BJP which has started this thing. All these religious channels that you see today, there's close to 20 religious channels. Most of them are backed by BJP in some way or the other. You have these Godmen appearing on various television channels for an hour or two.
So you see the backing of Ramdev in a similar way.
Absolutely. You see, Ramdev is not a Godman at all. In fact, Ramdev is probably one of the most corrupt personalities in this country. A man who gets a ticket for a gentleman in Bengal because he was sitting next to him in a plane, and the gentleman happens to win and then becomes a minister now, only because he overheard some conversation about black money. And this guy...
Let me get Shiv Vishwanathan to weigh in on this before Sambit jumps into this.
See, I think you've got to be a bit
No,
careful.
I don't need to jump in, by the way, Nidhi.
No, okay. No, let me just get Shiv
Samit, I'll
Vishwanathan's
say
comment,
something
yeah.
which will make you jump. So, I think there are two things here. I think you've got to be careful about these cults. Tarring them all with the same brush or saying they belong to one party is sheer nonsense. if you look at many of these religious groups, they are the best disaster managers in the country. Swaminarayan, Anand Marg, all of them are among the great disaster managers. Ramakrishna Mission.
Actually, many of them have done good work.
Yes,
They set up
they've done
hospitals and
tremendous
schools.
work.
They've actually
So
done good work
when we're
also.
analyzing religion, let's not standardize it. And two, let's not think religion is only for the poor and illiterate.
Yeah.
That if you get
Absolutely.
a PhD or secular, I think that's nonsense. Unless we open up this analysis, look at things empirically, historically, in terms of the various social groups and histories behind each of these people, we are not going to do
But
much.
Shiv, a lot of it does come out of the insecurity amongst
No, no,
people.
but wait.
Perhaps-
Faith, no.
Yeah.
This idea that faith is always created out of insecurity. Religion is not about insecurity.
I'm not
This
talking
is
about
one of the
religion.
most stereotyped views of religion.
No, I'm not
Religion
talking
can
about
be a search for meaning. And I think one has to understand the two aspects of this. And this is coming from someone who's as secular as I am. But let's be clear. Religion is a phenomena of complexity which can't reduce to God cults and conmen. It's deeper.